You know, it seems to me that one of life's great pleasures, really an indulgence, is to watch the masterful conversationalist and communicator Pete Buttigieg outfox those dimwits at Fox. And that would be our featured story today. So many wonderful clips to share. But the one that's really going to make you crazy is this: Pete calling out Trump, his dictator fetish, and questioning who's actually paying for that big, beautiful ballroom. Welcome to Occupy Democrats, and please hit that subscribe button if you support same-sex marriage like our loud, proud, and truly obnoxious Secretary of the Treasury. So notoriously, Fox Faux News is the home of bombastic, fact-free shouting over guests and calculated disregard for the truth. But earlier today, the calm, cool, and collected Pete Buttigieg put on a master class in civil discourse in the foul and putrid studios that Murdoch built. Now, there are so many points to hit, but our featured clip, it's a doozy. That's coming up in just a second, where Pete takes Trump to task about hypocritical pardons and what it means to really serve your country. But first, let's warm up with this gem about Trump's big, beautiful economy lie. Well, his logic has clearly left Kayleigh McEnany wide-eyed and speechless.
Even though we're a big tent and different Democrats sometimes have different answers, we're asking the same question, and I think it's the right question, which is, how do we make life more affordable in this country? You know, this president took office promising that he was going to make life more affordable on day one. He said grocery prices would go down. They've gone up. Energy prices are up while he's killing utility projects that would create more energy generation. Obviously, we're really in a painful place as a country right now on healthcare, where a big issue in the midterms will be, why did so many congressional Republicans vote to cut Medicaid while they were giving tax cuts to some of the wealthiest Americans, and why do they refuse to extend the tax credits that will help with everybody's premiums going up? You know, the House voted to do it. The Senate GOP refuses, and the president, I think, could solve that with one phone call, but he just won't. So these are the kinds of issues that I've been hearing about, certainly that event you mentioned when I was in Wisconsin, really around the country, and I think they're going to drive the election.
Now, I know she's not AI generated, and Trump once called her milquetoast, but her blank stare really cuts through to the truth, which is that every time decorated war vet Pete Buttigieg shows up on Fox, he eats them for lunch. They just don't know what to do with him. Now, before we show you Pete's tremendous takedown of Trump and his dictator fetish, check out this exchange. And by the way, did you know that Tom Homan prays before every cruel ICE incursion? At least so says this nitwit.
Absolutely. And we heard Tom Homan this week talk about how he prays every time before he goes out. He doesn't want even the illegal immigrant who might have a criminal record to be harmed in the process of obtaining them. But at the same time, Americans clearly called for immigration enforcement. They called for not a lawless southern border where 2 million gotaways happened during the Biden administration. So what's the response to those in your party who are saying abolish ICE? Because that is not where the American people stand.
Yeah, I think Americans want and expect that we will have a secure border, understand that we have immigration laws, and that those immigration laws have to be enforced. But what we're seeing is not that. What we're seeing is the people who are supposed to be enforcing the law are breaking the law. It's been held in court that they have violated countless court orders, and the people they're going after are not, increasingly and proportionally, not just the person we can all agree needs to be deported and dealt with, somebody with a criminal record. But, when you see a 5-year-old kid in a Spider-Man backpack being treated, being incarcerated this way, when you see people who did follow the rules, follow the laws, did everything they're supposed to, and they are still getting arrested, mistakenly deported, having their rights violated, when you see this photo of an American woman opening the door to her home and on her doorstep finds half a dozen agents, federal agents in tactical gear that is more tricked out than what I would take outside the wire when I was in Afghanistan. Again, on the door of an American porch, I think most people get that that is wrong. It is not making us safer. And, the border police should be dealing with the border. I don't know what border is in Minnesota.
Yeah, and I would note DHS's response would be
I know what border's in Minnesota. Let me correct myself, but not Minneapolis.
I'm sure you do know the border.
Okay, in our featured clip today, the distinguished Pete Buttigieg runs mild on Fox, and in doing so reveals the hypocrisy of the president who parties with pedophiles. Check this out.
Look, there's a lot of dictators around the world that I don't like. Maduro's one of them. That doesn't mean that the U.S. should use force to overthrow them one by one. Anytime we're talking about using force, and I say this as somebody who was sent into a war on the orders of an American president, the bar has to be higher. It has to be in the core security interest of this country, and there has to be no alternative. And I just don't see any evidence of that in the case of Venezuela. And, you know, the rationale that the administration gave was that this was about drug trafficking. But if we're really serious about that, you know, we have yet to hear an answer from the White House on why the President Trump, pardoned the president of Honduras, the ex-president who was convicted in an American courtroom of bringing in, I think, 400 I can't even remember how many millions of tons of cocaine, of billions of individual doses of cocaine into the United States. How did this criminal get a pardon from President Trump? Did he contribute to the ballroom project? Did he buy some of that cryptocurrency and make the Trump family wealthier? Why are these many fraudsters getting those pardons? And I think the pardon power, whether we're talking about the people who were convicted of beating up cops on January 6th, or whether we're talking about the ex-president of Honduras, should be a much bigger story in this country.
Secretary Buttigieg, I would note that Marco Rubio gave an explanation this week. The president felt that the Honduran president, former, I should note, was untreated fairly. But thank you for your viewpoint. We love having alternative viewpoints here.
Hey, Pete, as to that snarky smirk at the end there, well, that's way better than Scott Jennings on CNN. But then again, so much about Pete Buttigieg is way better than everyone else. And that, my friends, is what we need to focus on. Who do we follow to get out of this dark orange forest and create a new equitable kind of democracy, one that actually recognizes and embodies our country's founding principles? This is what our children should be exposed to, after all, not what's coming out of the Epstein files.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility.